Oliver, thanks for jumping on, man. How's it going?
Reese, I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Well, what we'll do is we'll start with a quick introduction, just to kind of get to know you, ask a little bit about your background and how you found no code, and then we'll take it from there. So really nice casual chat, nothing too stressful. If there's any long awkward pauses, we'll either cut them out or we'll leave them in. Maybe we'll leave them in.
Of
Depends how long and
course.
awkward it gets. Cool. So yeah, introduce yourself. What are you working on right now?
Awesome. Thank you, Reese. So I'm Oliver. I'm 18 years old and I run an AI no code software dev agency. At the moment, I am trying to work out a few things because AI no code as a space is moving so quickly and every day there is something new and it's so exciting as an industry to be in. And I think the big kind of fork in the road for me at the moment is, do I keep working with people to develop software on that kind of classic agency retainer model? Or do I try switch something and build something myself? Because software is getting easier to build. If you've got the ideas, why not just go for it? But it's finding that balance really at the moment is where I've kind of hit the fork in the road.
Mhm.
But as a space, I think it's so exciting to be in. Like I say, it's changing every day. There is some such exciting products coming out, and definitely really excited for now and in the future.
Awesome. So how did you get into no code? How did you stumble across it online or someone tell you about it? How did you get into the space?
So I first discovered no code through YouTube. Someone called Brett, and he publishes loads of kind of no code videos. First big tool I heard about was Bubble. Obviously, you're very experienced with Bubble. Bubble.io was kind of the first way we could build software with this kind of visual editor. It was almost doing what Squarespace and Wix were doing for websites, but they're doing it for software. And I thought the concept of that is so cool. And then it was also this kind of turning point that I noticed everyone was on. You look at all these big creators at the time, Iman Gadji, they were all switching from this agency model to the SaaS model. And I always kind of heard of SaaS, it was being thrown around. So I was looking into, okay, you know, the more once you kind of fall into that SaaS loophole, you start exploring. It's so exciting. There's so much to it. And I kind of got hooked and I wanted to learn more about it, how I can build, how I can launch products, how I can help people launch products, all the way from coming up with the idea to validating it, to prototyping it, to launching it, to scaling it, and then to exiting it at the end.
Nice. So did you get into it from the point of view of you wanted to build your own stuff to start with and then realize actually I'm quite good at this, I'll sell it to people, or was it like I always want to build an agency?
Yeah, I mean, the reality was at the time was like I wanted to build my own software products. That was always the end goal. But the reality was, I didn't have any ideas. I wasn't, I think you've got to be experienced in a space. You've got
That's
to
it.
recognize
Yeah.
serious problems. And until you do that, you can't just whip up a software product because no one's going to buy it. So my kind of strategic thinking at the time was we'll start by building products for other people. We'll get good at building products for other people. We'll build a system where we can also build SaaS products affordably. If we've got a team, we can build SaaS products and you know how to build SaaS products and you can implement them, you can validate them, and you can test them quicker than anyone else can. When you have that idea or you see that problem in the market, you've suddenly got a huge advantage over everyone else to actually test these ideas and bring them to life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because you obviously had that kind of, I suppose, wisdom at the very beginning, whereas
Mm,
I started off by just going all in on building something which I thought was really cool.
sure.
And I did that classic founder thing of I think this is cool, everyone else is going to love it. And obviously if you
Sure.
launch it, no one's that interested. And then you push and push and push and you try and find all these different marketing strategies and really I almost did the opposite strategy to you. And I don't even know if what I did was a strategy. It was more a case of launching something that I really enjoyed building,
Mm,
and then trying to find a market. Whereas what you're doing is more finding a market or getting experience in different markets through working with clients and then
mhm.
figuring out where an opportunity might be to build something to serve that particular market, which is the right way of doing it. And if I could go back in time, 8, 9 years ago, I would have done the same thing. Obviously I didn't have the same experience and knowledge that I do now, but I think you're definitely taking the right approach to it to get
But
started.
I think the problem's almost even harder now because even you're talking 8, 9 years ago, Bubble was, Bubble's still compared to what we've got today, it's still a skill. A Bubble developer
Mm,
is very much a skill and is someone you need if you want to build a project on Bubble. Bubble's not some sort of out the box thing you can just use and create software on. You have to spend time learning it. Even compared to something like Squarespace, you have to spend time learning it. You have to actually understand quite a lot of fundamentals about API and backend capabilities. Um, so I think the problem now, if someone wants to get into the AI no code space, is they are just going to hop straight onto that bandwagon that you were saying, of just building a product because
Yeah.
it's so easy to build a product now.
Yeah, it's so easy to build. It literally just comes down to a few prompts. I mean, not necessarily with Bubble right now, but with all the AI generators out there, all the vibe coding stuff. Um, so it makes it easy to go from 0 to 1 in terms of a product and actually building something.
Mm,
But it's everything else. It's that, that's like 10% of it. It's the other 90% that people forget or they don't really know about,
sure.
especially if it's their first product. So you've obviously, from what I understand, dabbled with a little bit of the vibe coding stuff and the sort of
Sure.
AI generators. What are your thoughts so far in terms of, it's still very early stage, I think, with AI generation
Yeah.
of apps, but how are you finding that?
So I think this vibe coding thing is completely crazy because it's not just changing like how everyone's building software. It's like even for me running an agency, we became Bubble certified just like you. We pay to be on Bubble's system every month. We've built our system around one tool. And now all these tools are coming out, which aren't particularly knocking Bubble out the park. But I think in a lot of ways, Bubble has a lot to do to compete with what's coming out. And you're right, this kind of classic thing with vibe coding, which no one really remembers, is this 90-10 rule, where you can build 90% of it in
Mm,
10 minutes, but that final 10% is going to take you hours. Um, and I think interestingly, if you're using the right tech stack and you know how to work these tools, if you're using Claude and you're kind of pulling the logs and the code, giving it to Claude, getting it to write the prompts, it does become quite systematic. And you do realize that actually even that final 10% is possible. Um, but like I find this really weird because even running an AI no code business, I am genuinely like, which tool do we go for? Because I think
yeah.
in a way, like kind of going a little bit off here, but almost using them both is a really good idea because never before have I been able to say to a client, we're going to build you a complete clickable prototype of your app idea
Yeah.
for completely free,
Yeah.
send it over to them, send it through Bubble, even put it onto a domain. Like, how sick is that for a lead magnet?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I think it's great for that sort of thing, and that's something that I haven't explored fully yet. Is the how can we use it for the initial conversations
Yeah,
with clients, and how can we generate value quickly? It's that quick, fast value approach.
sure,
So as
sure.
soon as someone comes in and we're having a conversation about their project, how can we show them or give them as much value up front as possible without them even
Yeah,
spending any money whatsoever? And obviously there's some qualification metrics in there in terms of you want to only be doing it with legitimate people who are interested in working with you. You don't want to be giving out
sure.
stuff all day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think you're spot on in that these tools, if you can just get the 90% done in, let's say, 20 minutes, just to show a concept, to
Hmm.
show them what you can do, because everyone out there, and this is the approach that we take in our sales process, is everyone else is giving proposals, they're telling people what they can do for them, and
Mm.
everyone's heard it all before. We can do this, we can do that.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
now take the approach of we'll just show you what we can do, and then
Mm.
if you want to work, we'll evolve it and build it into a real product. And that's really helping us sort of get further down the line with bigger projects and just building that trust as well. Because while everyone
Sure.
else is talking, we're just showing.
And I think it's interesting because I think it so much depends on the client. I think the weird thing about vibe coding is, but like I said, Bubble's a skill. Bubble developers are very much skilled developers, just in a kind of different subset of overall development. If I say to a client, I'm going to build it using a vibe coding stack, um, some won't know what that is and won't care and will actually be quite amazed by it. But some will be like, why am I paying you for that?
Yeah, it's weird because the whole vibe coding phrase and the whole sort of 90-10 rule, it's always become a bit of a cliche that you can get 90% of the way there, the other 10% is going to take forever to get out of that
Yeah.
endless error loop and error handling and fixing. um, and I also think that we operate in this echo chamber where we know what vibe coding is, we know the ins and outs of all these tools, but most people, especially clients, especially business clients, don't know that. If
Mm.
you speak to DIYers, entrepreneurs who have dabbled with these tools, they kind of understand it and they're
Yeah.
more likely to throw up these sort of, oh, well, I can just generate it myself. What value are you providing? But when you're working with busy business clients who
Sure.
specialize in certain areas, they're not interested in learning any of that. And I think that's a better area of business to focus on and target.
Hmm.
as opposed to DIYers who you've kind of got to convert to your way of doing things, and they're a lot more, I suppose, not self-sufficient, but they'll just say, "Oh, I can do this myself," and it's harder to prove value. Whereas whether it's for a real business, the value you provide is quick, fast deployment of apps that their dev team doesn't have to worry about internally. They don't have to build it themselves and all that
Yeah,
kind of thing. So we,
yeah.
we do operate in this echo chamber that I think is quite interesting, in that we assume everyone that we speak to knows all the jargon, all the words that we're talking about on calls. They
Mm,
know all of these tech stacks, but actually they really don't. So I still think there's a lot of education around what vibe coding is, what no code is.
mm.
I haven't made the transition, and I probably won't, from no code to vibe code or AI
Because
generated
I
stuff.
think this is super interesting because obviously in terms of our agencies, yours is very much, a very kind of top level experience bubble agency. So it's harder for you to suddenly decide, you wouldn't obviously just move tech stacks. Um, but what do you think about vibe coding? Is it scaring you?
No, no, not at all. You know what? I was thinking about this the other day. I was really trying to think about, is this do I need to
Yeah.
start? Am I a Luddite here? Because obviously, I've been using no code for 8, 9 years now. Am I going to be left behind if we don't switch, or if I don't train my team or train myself on vibe coding? And to be honest, I think it comes down to the confidence we can have in output. So I know that when a project starts, we can design it in X amount of time, we can build it in X amount of time. It takes a certain amount of time to test and then deploy. We've got a fixed formula for that. It's different outputs for each client, obviously, but it's the same input formula. With vibe coding, there's a big unknown gray area there where I know how long it takes to formulate a series of prompts to build the database structure, the
Mm,
architecture, all of that kind of stuff. But I don't know how long it's going to take to overcome where the AI trips itself up. And then you get into that 10% area, that 10%
sure.
zone, where it deletes half the code base that you'd fixed previously to try and
Mm,
fix a new
mm,
bug that it's created. That's an infinite kind of recursive loop of
mhm.
problems, and it's hard to predict how long it's going to take to come out the end of that. And it's also hard to predict, if we've got a production app, if we want to make changes, because clients always want to make changes and iterations, which is great, and we love doing that. But if we start these changes, is the AI, is it going to delete half of what we had previously, and we're not even going to know
Mm.
about it? So then we've got to do a lot more regression testing, a lot more testing of all the other stuff that was there before, making sure it all works still, even just for small tweaks and changes. I mean, I've been working with, I won't name it, each individual tool separately, but I've been using tools to build my own stuff just for fun over the weekend,
Mm.
and it will build something that I kind of sit back and go, that is unbelievable. And then I type in a prompt to add or change a pop-up, and then suddenly it's deleted the whole
Just
pop-up
get rid of
mechanism,
it. Yeah.
and nothing else is working on any of the other pop-ups. So it's like, we can't do that for clients just yet. It's great for prototyping, it's great for showing value up front, but I just can't see, at least now, maybe in the future, but I'd still be worried about it. I can't see it being used, at least
But
with creative
then, but
concepts.
that's the other thing, isn't it? It's like this is where it's at now,
Yeah, yeah,
and Bob Lovable is I think 7 months old.
yeah,
It's
incredible.
it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Um, and where's it going to be once it's a year old?
Mm,
Like it is improving pretty quickly, and weirdly, it's kind of changing, isn't it? Because if you have a bubble developer, they're very much they'll understand code on a basic
hmm.
level. But I think if you have a lovable developer, what you need is an actual developer, someone who really
Yes.
does understand code. Because once you get stuck properly with
Yep.
lovable and none of your tools are kicking through, um, it's now a job for a developer to come in and sort it out. Um, and then I think the other interesting thing about lovable is that lovable itself is an incredible tool, but Superbase is like kind of obviously so Superbase is the
Mm,
back end behind most Lovable projects. And I think actually I am more impressed by Superbase than Lovable in a lot of ways because I mean AI can always generate code
hmm.
and that's impressive. But the fact we've now got this idea of a back end as a service,
Yep.
and I think, even I mean Bubble wouldn't introduce native functionality, but it's going to change both the no code and the kind of vibe coding space.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Superbase is one of those things that they've just taken something so complicated and scary for
Mm,
most people and
yeah,
made it as simple as they could, and they've
yeah.
done an incredible job with it. And I think pairing up with Lovable as that native integration just makes it so much easier. But I do think there's still that trust element of obviously with like database tables, you need to make sure that in Bubble you have privacy rules to make sure that John Smith can't access Sally Jones's data and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And with vibe coding, I don't think most people understand those sort of components, and they just
Mm,
think, great,
mm.
I've got a database, it's saving the data, but they don't know that someone else might be able to access someone else's data if they do X, Y, Z, or there's so many little things like that. And I think Superbase have done some really good stuff to solve that by default. Um, but it just worries me from a point of view of it's whether we can deploy it to production yet and have full trust in that. With no code, we can see everything that's going on. With
Sure.
AI, there's a little bit more of a trust involved. But
There is definitely a security issue. I think there was definitely some problems with Lovable in the early days with they were exposing a lot of the API keys. And the other thing was people were just typing API keys directly into the chat, for the Lovable prompts, and that exposes them completely. So that's another really interesting point because obviously Bubble has had years
yeah,
to build up a really functional, verified security mechanism.
yeah,
Um, and Lovable, because it's so new and has just launched, I think it's definitely, it will be too standard,
hmm
and Superbase will be too standard if it's like you say, if it's done correctly. But it's more
yeah,
for people who have never done this before and don't know basic things, salting and hashing passwords, and
mhm,
they just won't exist unless you ask them to do that.
mm. Yeah. I think it's an interesting space. So it's something to keep an eye on. Definitely something to be used as you have, and I might start doing in the sales process to lock in those kind of
Mm.
those good deals and build that trust. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the your agency itself. So how are you sort of looking to get customers at the moment? How do you acquire customers? Are you doing outbound, ads? What's the strategy for you?
Sure. So I've got two strategies at the moment. Main one is LinkedIn, and that works both on kind of an inbound and outbound level. Posting, kind of a lot of my leads at the moment through LinkedIn come through ideas in my head that I then go build on Lovable. And often, sometimes the little secret is I'm just building a UI with no back end. Not all the time, but
hmm
sometimes for some ideas they are just front ends. I validate the concept,
Yeah,
see if people like it. Like building things which I know are roughly in my space. So my space is kind of digital marketing agencies that want to launch SaaS, or founders of companies that want to launch SaaS, coaches that want to launch, have an idea, maybe turning their service into a product.
hmm
Um, so it's like I can build things which I think would be relevant. For example, the other day I built I'm trying to create this like lead magnet because I think so many lead magnets
hmm
are boring. Looms are boring. Audits are definitely boring. Ebooks are incredibly boring. No one is ever going to read that. No offense, Bruce. And
yeah,
I think my concept was like, okay, let's turn SEO audits into a Spotify rap. So these really cool visuals that come through, scans your website. And I thought that would be really popular. It wasn't really popular. So it's like, but the thing is, I could just validate and test these ideas,
yeah,
send them to people in my network, see what people think, see if people actually use them. And then it's like, one, that generates me inbound leads from people who are sort of interested in commenting.
yeah,
But two, that also gives me an idea of what do people in this space actually want to build. And I'm constantly discovering that, constantly on that journey. Um, and then my second thing is cold emails, which I'm still trying to perfect. I'm not very good at that. I keep cooking all my inboxes, so I'm really not the man to go to when it comes to cold email.
it's
I
tough.
mean that it's just getting harder and harder, isn't it? You just spend so much money getting these inboxes set up, paying instant lease fees, and I still seem to get
Yeah,
them messed up. But we're getting there. But in LinkedIn at the moment is the main
yeah,
um, driver of leads.
yeah. And how long the lead magnets you put together, the kind of micro SaaS
Mm.
that you put together as lead magnets, how long do you give it before you go, this isn't working, no one's interested in this, like you just said?
Yeah, like you say, probably not long enough
hmm
because sometimes posts just don't perform how you want. They don't get to the right people. The copy's not
Yeah,
written properly. So what I do is I'll send them to a few people, see if they reply. But I've had posts in the past which have just done really well based off the concept. So I think now what I'm looking for is just instant validation of the concept. And I think when LinkedIn's so noisy, perhaps that's not right. Um, but it's a tricky thing to balance, isn't it? Because I can now whip out products so quick that it's like, do I just move on to the next one, or do I properly focus and push this one out? But this thing I built isn't the core part of my offer. It's just a kind of fun idea for people to scroll through, and have a look at the kind of stuff I build.
This is an area that I really struggle with is
Mm,
focus, and it's something that I noted down that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. Because the focus side of things, we've got very used to instant. I don't like the phrase instant gratification, but we have in business. I mean, obviously with lifestyle, you have Uber, you have all the
mm,
instant like food delivery and blah blah blah. And I'm not going to get into that because that's been out there. That's great. That solves certain set of problems. But I think as founders now, and especially as this sort of younger, I mean, you're 18. I've got 10 years on you, so I'm 28.
mm.
I've really evolved my, I say, probably devolved my mindset into how can I validate things immediately? And if I don't validate it immediately, I'm going to move on, like you just said.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
the problem there is you need time to validate things and you need a consistent, continual effort to get to a point where you've either decided this is validated or this isn't validated. But putting one LinkedIn post out and not getting engagement on a LinkedIn post, not necessarily on the products, on the lead
Mm,
magnet, I don't think is enough time. And I completely understand why you think that because I do the same thing, right? So I'll test an ebook. I know you hate ebooks. They do really well on Meta. That's a different. We'll talk about that later. But it's very easy, especially if you pay for like or a catalog of different content you can put out,
mm,
rebrand it, put out whatever, um, or generate little micro SaaS. It's very easy just to jump from one to one to one, and you have that shiny object syndrome, or at least I do, within the same business. So I used to have three, four businesses at the same time. All would do,
mm,
would bring in revenue, and would have clients and stuff like that. So they were all legitimate, real businesses that brought in income. But I decided I need to just focus on one thing and do
yeah.
that really well. And now I've almost channeled that same shiny object syndrome into the business. So I will jump around from marketing strategy to marketing strategy. I'll
Sure.
run Meta ads, I'll run Google ads, lead magnets. I'll try so many different lead magnets. And I think it's important, especially as you sort of first get started, is to just try to be conscious of that and not get into that habit because it's very hard to untrain, I'm finding.
Mm,
Does that
mm.
make sense?
It's very interesting because you've always said that to me, that idea of shiny object syndrome. But you're
Mm.
right, it doesn't just exist in terms of skipping between ideas. It exists of stuff you're doing within the business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's sometimes worse because you don't have any
Yeah.
benefits of compounding. It's like if you were to invest in the stock markets and then every other day close all the positions and reinvest in something else. Or just it's like it's pointless. You never benefit from that compounding gain over time. And if you just put it in and left it, kept an eye on things, but
Mm,
left it for a long period of time, each incremental gain compounds and compounds and compounds. Whereas when you're changing vehicle all the time, you only need that one vehicle to win the race. You can't keep changing car
mm,
during the race to try and win. You'll just keep resetting every time, and everyone just overtakes you. And I think that's why a lot of younger entrepreneurs now are so much further ahead than maybe me, than I am. And you hear about these crazy success stories because they've picked something and they've kind of stuck with it.
mm.
It's very easy to do the opposite, especially if you've got a bit of an ADHD mindset, or
Sure.
yeah, mind, which I have.
But I think that's interesting. And you mentioned there, like, this is the thing I was talking to you about the other day, this idea of like Alex Hormozy. I think it exists with Alex Hormozy's offers, constantly trying to find the best offer you possibly can. And that's been like the last few weeks, I've been testing so many different offers,
Yeah,
putting out some crazy stuff, free builds. And I kind of took a step back the other day and was just like, I think we're drilled into this mindset of we have to provide, our value proposition has got to be huge,
yeah,
our offer's got to be insane. And one, it's not testing the offers enough, but two, it's like actually nowadays, if you've got credibility, the offer is a big part of your sell, but it's not everything.
yeah,
And I was saying to you, it's almost like I'm hopping around between different offers, like we said, which is one a bad thing. And then it's also almost building offers that sometimes cheapen your brand. And I'm
Yeah.
seeing so many people do it. And I think it is a problem now, especially with this kind of software development space, because it's a weird space to be in, especially for kind of traditional software agencies who are still building hard code. Um, but you know, you know what I mean by that. This idea of saying you're going to build something for free or offering insane amount of value, and at the end of the day, high ticket and good quality clients don't always look for that.
Mm. Yeah, I put a LinkedIn post out a few days ago or a week or so ago about this exact same thing, and I came to that realization where I was looking at the leads that were coming through the website, and none of them fit the ideal customer profile we had. None of them were real legitimate businesses that we could really solve a
Mm,
problem for. And I
mm.
realized it was because I'd structured the whole website as me with a VSL. Obviously, I've got quite a young face as well, so it just screamed like a money Twitter. Who's this young guy starting? It just didn't fit who we wanted to work with.
Yeah,
And obviously, like before, the first few years as me as a freelancer, so only we've built a creative concept into an agency in the last 2 years or so. Before it was me as a freelancer, and it was just very much focused on the service. Like,
yeah.
we will build you a Bubble app. We specialize in Bubble, blah 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 blah. There was no crazy offer. There was no money back guarantees. There was none of that sort of unbelievable offer type packaging, which I think turns off the right type of people that we wanted to work with.
Mm,
And it
mm,
brings in all those people who are just looking for a crazy good deal. And it just attracts a completely different market. And even though you're checking all those boxes that, all the people out there say is a good box to check,
mm.
it depends on the market. If you're high ticket software development, it's all around trust. And I think, and trust and appearance and how you choose to talk about the service, not the crazy sort of service delivery of all these extra bells and whistles and bundling things in that aren't necessary, chucking in free logo design and all this stuff where it starts to appeal to a early stage audience,
Yeah,
because existing businesses don't need a logo design bundled in with their web portal that they need to build for their employee
no.
onboarding. And I think I came to that realization. So I just basically just archived the existing website that I'd spent months iterating
Hmm,
and turning into this kind of money Twitter, accidentally
hmm.
money Twitter style website, which I thought looked really good, but it was just the wrong fit. And I rebuilt the whole thing over a weekend. Much happy with it now. It's a lot more sleeker. It attracts the right type of people,
Sure.
and I just think it's less. I've decoupled it from me, so it's not so much tied to my face and me. It's more tied to the service, which is bubble development now. It's tied. We've coupled it with what we do and what we specialize in, as opposed to me, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting what you're saying. I remember you saying this was a couple of years ago, but you running that meta campaign, saying what with the hook, have an app idea and don't know where to start.
Yeah,
Which I think for someone getting into the space is like
great.
that makes
Yeah,
sense. That's a really good hook. Like a lot of people are interested. I remember we had this conversation. Everyone's had some sort of app idea,
yeah,
especially Bubble. Now they've got a fantastic native mobile functionality.
yeah.
So people with mobile app ideas can be built. Um, but then you were saying that's probably one of your most like unqualified leads coming through from that hook.
Yeah, it's super interesting because that whole have an app idea but don't know where to start campaign um, just cranked leads.
Yeah,
We were getting we were
I
spending
remember
50
your
pounds a day.
calendar.
Yeah, and it was just blocked out. We were getting 10, 12 bookings a day, which was awesome from a point of view of I'm sitting there and I see Calendly notifications coming up and I'm
Sure,
thinking, yeah,
sure.
this is business, right? I'm in business. But
Mm,
the problem is we had to have 300 sales calls, or I had to have, I say we, me and my sales guy at the time had to have 300 plus sales calls to close 14 deals. And
yeah.
that was a real time strain, and we still got a four to one ROAS. So we spent X amount. We got, well, every
Okay.
every dollar went in. We got four back overall on that campaign, which is great. And you'd think, let's put as much money into that as possible. But then if you
Mm,
multiply the number of calls required
mm.
to get that, it was very very. I think if you offset the labor costs, and obviously
Oh, for
as the
sure. Yeah.
founder, I wasn't really doing that. So I was thinking, brilliant, we've got a 4 to 1 ROAS. That's amazing.
Mm,
But the time required I think it suits someone who's just getting started and they can have loads of conversations that are pretty low stress, low pressure,
Yeah,
and they can speak to people. They can really refine their sales process. They can refine the sales conversation, understand how potential clients speak and what they want, and just talk to people. And you can do that for very little amount of money now. And that's why I think it's a really good kind of entry level campaign. But what Creative Concepts is all about and what we've evolved to and the clients that we have worked with historically and continue to want to work with, um, it, it, it just wasn't the right fit for us. And we still got some really great clients from that campaign. The 14 that we've worked with have been brilliant. And also we had some fantastic conversations with some great entrepreneurs and people who are just getting
mm,
started. But as a business and as a business owner, the ratio of calls booked to calls closed just didn't stack up in terms of the time required. But I do think it's a really good campaign for people just getting started in no code or even just anything
sure.
generally.
Okay.
Just yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a little think about content because obviously there's so much content out there at the moment. We're trying to create some right now. Who do
Definitely.
you who do you listen to? Who do you read? Who do you follow? Is it Alex Hormozy? I mean, who's your going to go to?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, thinking about it, I think in terms of like business content, I'm consuming much less now than I was when I was getting started. Because I think when you're getting started, it's easy to just watch every video you can. You do learn quite a lot from that. But then when you're kind of getting busy, it kind of slips away. So yeah, still watching kind of Hormozy. I mean, I used to watch those of Iman Gaji. But to be fair, now it's just kind of things I see on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and I'm not one to go anymore and kind of watch much YouTube stuff, which I probably should.
Do you not have it as background noise? Do you never, if you're just sort of sitting there
No,
working,
I
no back?
can't really. I can't. I don't think I can focus on a task and
Mhm.
have some podcast going.
Yeah, it's tough. I think for me, with because I have that scatterbrain approach of
Mm,
it, I think it kind of stimulates that a little bit, and it works for me so that I can focus on one thing. But I've got Alex Hormozy, who I love listening to, or there's a few other podcasts out there at the moment as well. I just really like listening to those in the background, and I'll pick up
yeah,
on things, and then it'll also help if I'm creating something or creating an ad campaign
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever it might be. It just makes a massive difference for me at least. But yeah, interesting. Okay, great. Well, let's final question for you. So if I could wave magic wand and make one thing come true in your agency within the
Hmm.
next 6 months, what would that be?
Oh, good question. Okay, I would say in the next 6 months.
Yeah,
Um, I'd want to see a clear direction on where vibe coding was going versus where no code platforms are going versus where people who are still building on a completely traditional stack are going. And know in 6 months' time what's going to be the capabilities of vibe coding. What updates is Bubble going to do? Is Bubble going to kind of swift towards vibe coding? And I think that would make the decision much easier on what tech do we use so we can just focus on the offer and selling.
awesome. Oliver, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Reese. Always good to chat.
Thanks, mate.